Hi there, how's it going? It's the Slayer here. So today I'm showing you the Black Knight Greatsword in Dark Souls 3. I recently beat New Game Plus 2 and blasted it through with the Dragonslayer Great Axe. Now here you see this Black Knight Greatsword. That was the next one on my list. I saw it on the video of a famous YouTuber called Sir Antonius, and I said, hey, I've got to try it. So here we are, and I did most of my New Game Plus 3 run with it, and I'll show you the key bosses and a couple of PvP matches and the main bosses and and parts of the DLC that I finished with this sword. And yeah, we're doing some pretty decent damage to Gundyr. And oh, I was a bit too far to make a critical hit from this parry, but I don't care. This bug dude is pretty easy now. I can smash him anyway. It doesn't have to be as textbook perfect with the parries as we see with Champion Gundyr a bit later. So I remember a couple of months ago when I first started this game, and I really struggled with this boss because it was my first game, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be like one of those guys who didn't get past the first boss. And I've heard rumors of people around that, but today it's quite different. Every time you start New Game Plus, you basically start by bullying this guy, and there are hundreds of ways of beating him, and he's much easier than that Champion Gundyr guy you meet later. And here we are. We got some pretty good damage numbers there because this was New Game Plus 3. So I beat Iudex Gundyr, and I'm showing you the Vordt fight first because then I went to Vordt and I just wanted to see that given the damage this does, that could I kill him even before he gets active in phase 2. But you can't really do that to most bosses. There's just one that champions Gravetender and Gravetender Great Wolf in the Ashes for Irythill DLC. In that, the Great Wolf can be killed the moment it enters phase 2, even before it gets active. If you're close enough, and the moment you see the red eyes, you can do that. But look at it here. We almost stopped Ward from going into phase 2, but we didn't. So I got a bit clunky and I got trampled by him because I wasn't looking out for his charge. I was trying to see if I could finish him then and there. But nonetheless, this was a pretty quick fight, and you can see that the weapon did show potential. So let's see where we go next. So it just looked like a pretty good weapon because I've not played Dark Souls 1, but they said the Black Knight weapons in that were insane. Now in this game, when I went to Untended Graves after beating Champion Gundyr, you do win the Black Knight Great Axe and Black Knight Glaive, but outside of PvP, I don't rank those pretty highly. So I never knew this great sword with the high damage output was also there in the game until I saw the video by Sir Antonius. And here I've quickly finished off the rotting greenwood tree. I actually did this much later to get the transposing kin, but I just put it out there first. And here we are with pretty much bully Crystal Sage, finish him in under a minute. So the actual order in which I did the run, in which I do every new game, is that after you have to do Iudex, then I'd go do Dancer. This time I beat her on merit, or earlier I used to do the cheese. And then after Dancer, you get early access to Lothric Castle, where I'll beat Oceiros and Champion Gundyr, and then I'll pretty much rush through this road of sacrifices to first beat Sage, and then I'd go to beat that curse rotting greenwood to get the transposing kiln for the bosses. So that's pretty much the order I follow. Then thereafter I pretty much follow the same order the game does. But this time I even did Dragonslayer Armour early, although I'm going to show it to you, that fight to you later. I had pretty much this time done Iudex, Dancer, Oceiros, Champion Gundyr, and Dragonslayer first, even before I did Vordt. But yeah, that's fun. Once you get into new game, you can do that. And here, this sword pretty much destroyed Crystal Sage. And here we are. This is Dancer in new game plus 3, and this is the first time that I beat her on merit without cheesing her. And this damn sword, it took the challenge out of the fight. And let me tell you, the actual video, the fight was a bit quicker than this video. And bear in mind, I'm playing with the keyboard, and unless you're playing this game with a controller or a high-end gaming keyboard, the input does struggle a bit. But so I've had that extra challenge to overcome, but I still do. If I was playing professionally, doing those no-hit runs, or ever wanted to become an expert at PvP, bear in mind I do win at PvP every now and then, even against good players, then I'd probably go for a controller. But if you want to just have good casual fun and you're okay with playing the game up till NG4 or 5, the base game, and playing the DLC up to NG3, then even a non-gaming keyboard would do. But there would be cases where you might miss certain backstabs, or you wouldn't necessarily be able to circle around that fast and do the backstabs that you see the YouTubers do. But it's still pretty good. Like, this is Dancer in New Game Plus 3, which is no cheap feat, and it's a pretty tough boss. And she's not only does high damage, but she has a big pool of health. And this sword made it really easy. So imagine if you made it easy for me, like a professional Souls player, proficient, who's not only a better player but proficient with a controller. Think about what they can do. Like, wow, that was a definitive whack. That really got rid of Dancer, and I was quite pumped that this was the first time I beat her in New Game Plus 3. So that's one of the things I'm saying, that I've beaten every boss I've shown you in this video, but imagine if I can, so easily beat them with a non-gaming keyboard. Imagine what you could do if you're proficient with a controller and more familiar with Souls games than I am. And here we are, Champion Gundyr, or Gundyr, or whatever. And yeah, this was good fun. Like, normally you can parry him, is pretty tough, pretty easy. Like, in normal I beat him without parrying and with a straight sword, but in New Game Plus 1 onwards I had to parry him. But this was interesting. New Game Plus 3 was the first time he got really aggressive. Like, everybody tells me that the only difference as you progress up to New Game 7 is an increase in the health and damage output, but I found that as I progressed through the new game, the bosses did their weapon arts a bit more, and some of them kept on manually spamming their charge moves almost like a human, albeit they weren't necessarily input reading or tracking your moves. They were just, sometimes they were playing blind, but sometimes it did get lucky, as if it looked as if there was an actual human out there. And their berserk mode was a bit more deadlier. Like, once they had like 20-30% of the health left, you can still beat them pretty easy, but it is a bit more of a difference. Like, New Game Plus 3 was the first time that Champion Gundyr and Dragonslayer Armour and Oceiros actually got like some kind of a personality of their own and actually posed some kind of a challenge. Though I beat them, but I didn't one-shot him this time, because what you're seeing here is a composite of 2 matches. So you see me here winning, but the first time I got him down to 90% of his health, I got overconfident and I missed it up, and then he went berserk. Like, I just had 1 hit left in my second attempt, and he chased me across both sides of the arena after I messed up a parry on the keyboard. And I'm like, what the fuck, man, I've just got 1 hit. I don't want to waste my ember in doing this fight again. So then after I got him down to 99% of his health with his parries, this fucking guy spent chased me in there. I got him, chased me all over the arena until I finally got the final hit. But yeah, I think this isn't the full fight, but yeah, if you've seen the full fight, that was really interesting. And then, okay, who do we have here? Oh yeah, this was Oceiros. Now, Oceiros is normally like a walking one-shot until New Game Plus 1. Last time in New Game Plus 2 was the first time he faced it. It was a sort of a challenge, but probably because I hadn't played him for a while, so I'd probably forgotten his moveset. But in New Game Plus 3, he gave a good challenge, but then again, this sword literally took him out. So you can see the damage output of this sword is pretty impressive, and once you get into position, it's taking him out in no time. So that's pretty good for a New Game Plus 3 boss. And yeah, there you go. That's Oceiros. And we'd actually, of course, you had to face him before you get access to Champion Gundyr, but that was a better fight, so I'll show that to you first. And here we are. Here's that funny demon you meet where, just before you go up to the place with the pale tongue and the 2 fat Dorises, from where you got to jump to get the Chloranthy ring. If you follow the Siegward's quest, this is one of those minor demons you fight with him, but it's no challenge at all. And here with this sword, it pretty much finished before it started. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting that one. And then here, this is that old wolf or something. It doesn't count as a boss, and it takes damage pretty easily, but it's the thing you find in that optional area, old Wolf of Farron, before you go and beat the Abyss Watchers. So I like testing my damage output against this guy, and when I first started the game until New Game Plus 1, he could do some damage. I remember when I was playing the normal game before I leveled up, I lost a lot of times to this guy, but ever since New Game Plus 1, he's a pretty much easy guy to beat. Not only do I know his moves, but I'm pretty leveled up. So it seems just like yesterday when I was struggling to level up and I just started the game and I didn't have the damage output to beat this guy, but today it's pretty easy. And here we go. the Abyss Watchers. Now, I did mess this up a bit because look, this weapon really damaged them quite a bit, but I was a bit slack, and as it is on the keyboard in this one, a bit overconfident. So there was a time where I messed up a few hits and they were chasing me around. But as you can see, these guys have pretty low health as it is, and this sword pretty much wiped them out. So, but yeah, I was a bit better in this boss with the Dragonslayer Great Axe, although that does lesser damage. Its weapon art is more convenient, that once these guys are in position, you can spam 3 successive weapon arts, and I had done that to one-shot phase 2 of this boss, as you would have seen in one of my prior videos. But on the whole, the overall damage output of this weapon is far superior. It's just that the execution of some of the others are easier, at least if you're on the keyboard like me. And here we go. Got rid of this guy. Check out the damage numbers. And of course, I had gone on to beat Volnir and whatnot. And here, after beating Volnir, there are a couple of other things I did, and the other monsters that I haven't shown, like the ones underneath that optional area, like Smouldering Lake and stuff. And here we had Pontiff Sullivan. Now, Pontiff Sullivan is the only one that I use an in-game summon for. I didn't do it entirely on merit, because if you want to use a slow weapon against him on the keyboard, that's a bit easier, but you saw it damage him as well. And here we are to Aldrich. I've used my typical strategy that I do against Aldrich, because on the keyboard, sometimes after he spams those arrows, even before you recover, he spams that laser. So I normally, when he fires those arrows, I back up to the wall, but facing him with my shield up, because that can block that laser. And then I go up and hit him. It's pretty easy. But in this match that I actually won, he didn't fire that laser for some reason, so which is pretty interesting. But luckily he didn't. But even then, he's pretty manageable to get. He's quite an easy one shot. So not really much of a boss, but sometimes he can have unpredictable patterns and make you mess up. And here we are, Dragonslayer Armour. I'd actually fought this earlier. And this was the first time I've seen Dragonslayer Armour angry and aggressive. It seems almost, it's funny to joke to say that after I one-shot him in New Game +2 in both the Ring City and the official boss fight. Whoa, look at that. Now that projectile of his is a very rare move, wherein he fires some kind of blade or arrow out of his weapon that can, throw you off the railing or even break the railing or something. And he kept on doing that in this match, but it wasn't my best performance. I missed a few counters. I let him hit me a bit, but even then he was way more aggressive than I've ever seen him, and this was the first time he posed the challenge, but I still kind of I guess more or less got him. But yeah, there you are. You see that projectile again. Until New Game +2 he hardly does it, and he doesn't do it in the Ring City. But yeah, so I got him here eventually. But this was interesting. This was the first time in New Game +3 that this guy was pretty aggressive and whatnot, and was willing to punish in that. But that was a good fight. And here we are at the infamous Doggo at the entrance of Irythill. And yeah, this sword took him out pretty easy as well. And even for some non-boss enemies, this sword is pretty good. Not quite the execution of the Great Axe, but definitely more damage output made it much easier to get rid of this guy, and he's quite a pain. This Doggo is interesting. He reminds me of a mix of the champion Great Wolf and one of the other dragon enemies in terms of his moves. And here we are. Here's Havel, who's got a bit of a role in the lore, and he's got a dragon tooth as a weapon and this really rock hard armor, which you need high vitality to use once you get a copy. And yeah, this guy can take some effort to beat front up, and I beat him easy with the Dragonslayer Great Axe. Other than that, I had struggled with every weapon, but this Black Knight Greatsword took him out pretty easily as well. So that's pretty interesting. Not a boss, but yeah, good to show you those fights and the execution of this move as well. And yep, and this is another non-boss enemy that can be a bit annoying at times, but the bigger man serpents at that Archdragon Peak. And look at how easily this took him out. That was pretty good fun. Otherwise, this guy can be quite an asshole. And here we are. This is the first time I staggered Lorien with a weapon, but I did the bow cheese on phase 2 because it was the first time in ages I got access to that. So I didn't want to risk losing an ember or whatnot. But this weapon, you clearly saw him get staggered at the end of phase 1. But yeah, and here we are. My favorite fight: the soul of Cinder, uncle, granddad, or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. This guy reminds me of one of my uncles or something, and it seems like until you realize who he is and he becomes Soul of Cinder, I'm like, yeah. So, but anyway, so this is phase 2, so it was normally a pretty tough fight, and you can see I was a bit slack there again on the keyboard. I was like, damn, I didn't even dodge a single lightning bolt. I did dodge a lot of his attacks, but every time I got hit by the lightning bolt, I'm like, didn't even dodge one fucking lightning bolt, did I? But yeah, I managed to beat him. So that was pretty interesting. So yeah, and this sword really took him out, which is pretty good, because even some of the other OP weapons I use, like the straight swords, or I once used the Drang hammers or sellsword twin blades, they do a pretty good damage to this guy, but none of them felt as convenient as this. Though of course I haven't run the actual numbers, they might still have a more damage output and they staggered him a bit more, but here we are. We staggered the guy and we finished him off. One sec. Oh, no, wait. I had to recover before the final blow. And yep, there you go. Soul of Cinder, Soul of Tinder, whatever. Yep, that was pretty good fun. Yeah, that's Soul of Cinder's phase 2. Oh wow, I built this composites. Even I'm watching this almost as if I'm watching my gameplay for the first time to look at where I'm going next. And this was Nameless King. Now, honestly, Nameless King was one fight I messed up, because in New Game Plus 2, you could stand behind him when he did that lightning attack. You saw I was about to win, but I stood behind him in a wrong position and I got killed. But this boss here, this is the Dragonslayer Great Axe, although this is a video on the Black Knight Greatsword. For this fight, I actually beat him with the Dragonslayer Great Axe, and after you saw my mess up with the sword, I'm showing you the Great Axe for a comparison. So the sword did do pretty good damage to him, but yeah, like phase 1 was not too convenient on the keyboard for me with that sword, and after I did that mess up in phase 2, I'm like, I've beaten one-shot this guy in New Game Plus 2 with this axe, and beaten him before with it. So for this guy, I stuck to what I know, but if you saw the damage output in that attempt where I wrongly stood behind him when I shouldn't have, and missed the killing blow and ended up dying instead, that sword does have potential on him. And here we anyway beat him like I normally do with the Dragonslayer Great Axe, and that's fine. But it does have potential, so that's pretty good. And then here we are, Yhorm the Giant. Now the game automatically triggered Siegward, because I didn't realize I'd followed his quest, so I didn't expect him to be there. So normally I beat Yhorm the Giant with a Storm Ruler because it takes too long. Now here Siegward was immobilizing him with the Storm Ruler, so I got a chance to use this sword on Yhorm, and look at how much damage it's doing to him, because normally without Storm Ruler it takes ages to kill him, but once Siegward immobilized this guy, Storm Ruler the Black Knight Greatsword was doing a hell of a lot of bloody damage to this guy. It took him out in no time. And as I reiterate, New Game Plus 3, so I'm pretty impressed with the damage output of this sword. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Again, yeah, keyboard can sometimes get a bit sloppy, but I'm like, one shot is a one shot. I'm not really worried about whether it's really perfect, or those no-hit runs, or those flawless black stabs, or a rapid circle strafing. Well, you really need a controller or more proficiency in these games for that. But end of the day, New Game 3 is New Game 3. It's not New Game 7, but it's certainly no easy feat even for a professional player. So I'm fine with the way it is. I don't mind if I missed a certain punish or a certain roll. I really don't give a fuck about that as long as I'm still winning. But yeah. And here we go. This is pretty quick considering how much damage, how much time it takes to beat this guy with any other weapon. Of course, we did have Siegward immobilizing him with the Storm Ruler, which helped me demo that. Otherwise, it would have been a bit harder to show you how good this weapon is on this guy. So, yep, and now even I'm looking forward as to where my edits is taking us next. So it's as exciting for me as it is for you to watch this footage of my own gameplay and have a look at where it's going next. And there's some loading screens I could have edited out a bit better, but I was trying to show you as much as possible without editing it, though there are some edits around. And here we are. This is in the Ring City DLC. This is where I was summoned as a Spear of the Church after I beat Midir in New Game Plus 2. I didn't try him in New Game Plus 3. I got the Spear of the Church ornament. For that particular fight in the Ring City, where there's a PvP boss along with the other characters as well, you get to play that as well once you beat Midir. So I've basically been summoned as the PvP boss for this guy who's trying to finish this DLC, and I pretty much got him with the sword. And yeah, initially I struggled in this fight because this has some weird setup whereby it limits your health and doesn't let you use the Estus which some of the others do. But this one limits your health or disables Ember mode because you're initially protected by some arrows of the church. I don't know how to use that, but here I won pretty easily. And PvP, you normally get players who are pretty well leveled up. So yeah, beat him pretty easy. And initially, though, I used to struggle with this fight, but then I've won a few of those as the Spear of the Church. So not bad. Zeph Slayer's a Spear of the Church. And here we are, this champion Gravetender and champion Great Wolf. For some reason, I don't know, this guy with that Valor Heart weapon kept on interrupting me this time, but he's pretty easy to kill. And this is an interesting fight. Now, the Great Wolf is a bit too fast to beat on the keyboard, but what I like about the Ashes of Ariandel is that although they do a lot of damage, they take a lot of damage as well. They're not as tanked up as the Ring City bosses or even the base game bosses in my view. So when I first played this fight, I'm like, there's no way I can counter this wolf on the keyboard. The input itself isn't there, and I struggled a few times until I beat him both in normal, New Game +1 and 2, and here using this Black Knight Greatsword, I beat him as easily as I did with the Great Axe, or even easier in New Game +3. So even if you can't dodge this wolf, if you're tanked enough and have enough Estus, what you got to do is you got to dodge as much as you can. Then in between he has an attack where he howls while he's standing next to you, or a mini dodge which isn't a full charge. That's when you can attack him. And once he enters phase 2, this is one boss where the moment his eyes are red, he's about to enter phase 2. If you directly hit his head or directly stand behind him and hit him, he dies immediately, doesn't activate phase 2. Now in this actual fight, as you'll see here, I was a bit far, so I let him activate phase 2, but I still took him out pretty easily. So it isn't the best gameplay, but on the damn keyboard, the input doesn't register that fast at times. So, and the actual fight, I don't know, maybe it's like that in console as well. The actual fight is much faster than the recording, and on the keyboard you don't necessarily have that recovery time or that input. And here he's transitioning to phase 2. Unfortunately, I mismanaged my stamina. Otherwise, when you saw his eyes go red before he did that freezing mist from his mouth, you could have hit him then and he would have died straight away. But anyway, I got this guy. Just needed one more hit and it was pretty easy. So you can see how powerful the sword is. And oh yeah, that's the one. So I always like getting this guy. So yeah, I don't fight him in the first area you meet him, because that's not the boss fight. And I've tried a lot that no matter how quickly you beat Gravetender, he will call this wolf. You can't skip that here, so I beat him here. So that shows this sword is pretty powerful if it can get through DLC bosses as well, like a Spear of the Church and Ring City DLC, which is a bit harder than the other one. And here we are. Here this isn't a boss, but this is that Sir Wilhelm you got to fight in that Ashes of Ariandel Free Day DLC. Though he's easy to beat, but he can be a bit tough when before you've leveled up and before you reach new game. He can be a bit that, and often he recovers mid-fight. But I loved how much damage this sword, just within a few hits he was out, and he's like, oh Lady Friday, that thing he does when he's dying and he's asking for help. So I'm like, this sword is pretty good, just a few hits and this guy's already like, oh Lady Friday. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And there we are, oh forgive me my lady, whatever. I'm like, yeah dude, whatever. So yeah, it was pretty insane. And this was that demon in pain and that demon from below. I do summon Slave Knight Gale for this fight, just because again, looking at it on a smaller screen, the camera angle, although it's the same camera angles as the console, playing on a smaller screen on the PC, certain bosses can be a bit annoying. So I just use the in-game summon. So yeah, I pretty much finished New Game +3. I finished off all the bosses except for Frida, Midir and Gale, but I'd beaten them in New Game +2, and I have separate videos of that. I didn't fight Frida in New Game +3, though I did other experiments that I tried different weapons on her, which would be a different video on phase 1 and 2. And on up till New Game Plus 2, she was a walking one shot, but thereafter, New Game Plus 3, I found that it was a bit more, but it was manageable. But at times, it felt a bit cheap on the PC because I don't know, like unlike until New Game Plus 2, in Phase 2, she's a bit more active and she attacks you in conjunction with Father Ariandel. I figured out a way to do that, but then I had the same glitch I had in my victory in New Game Plus 2, where once it crashed before the winning blow, or in New Game Plus 3, she was much faster than the keyboard could handle in Phase 3, where she was doing multiple attacks concurrently. I don't know, that was a glitch on my side on the console, so I'm like, yeah, I'll probably beaten her in New Game Plus 2, would probably rework a strategy and beat her again later. So yeah, so this was the Black Knight Greatsword. We saw a pretty good damage output from it, and then yeah, so I'm quite impressed by it. It took out that the routine bosses like Champion Gundyr and Dragonslayer faster than him, and it should have taken out Nameless King if it hadn't been for my mistake. But then I took him out with that other weapon, and the biggest discovery of it all was that it look at how easily it took out Dancer. That was really amazing for me. So this sword has got some real potential, and in the right hands it can do some devastating damage in this game. And it's a different thing that I'm in a separate video that will come out later. I've now moved on to New Game Plus 4, and I one-shot Dancer with this sword over there as well, so it's pretty good. So it's certainly a weapon I would recommend, and even if you're new and you're in your first new to the game and you haven't reached New Game Plus, you're in the base game, I would recommend trying getting this sword. It's a pretty rare drop. You get it from the Black Knight in the Road of Sacrifices, but until I had seen Sir Antonius's video, I didn't know you could get it because drops from that guy are so rare. So I thought he doesn't drop anything, but after I saw that video, I went, and that Black Knight you get at Road of Sacrifices, just keep on fighting him or keep on refreshing the relevant bonfire, or you could even access that bonfire once you reach Abyss Watchers. There's an easier way to access another bonfire, the perimeter, which opens a gate which takes you directly to him. So keep on playing him until you get this sword. I believe it needs 30 strength and 18 dex or something. If you can build that up even in your initial run of the game when you're not as powered up as I am in New Game Plus 3, it could be quite useful for you, and you could then use it on Dancer even in the base game or Soul of Cinder and the other bosses. So I was quite impressed at how this took out Soul of Cinder. Now, to be fair, I did cheese a good part of Phase 1 of Soul of Cinder with some arrows, but then I said no, let me go and fight him. But look at how easily it took out Phase 2 of Soul of Cinder. You saw earlier in this video, even though it wasn't really the best gameplay, I ended up not dodging every one of his damn arrows, the one he fires, which is similar to Grin, but it took him out pretty easily. So this is really like a weapon, like for those on strength builds or those who don't mind a slower weapon, I would recommend looking into this one. So that's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts.